Hi there. Welcome to The PrevenTable, the podcast giving you a seat at the table with conversations about the intersection of alcohol, drugs, and mental health in everyday lives. Take a seat and join us.
Welcome to The PrevenTable. With me today are three very esteemed guests. I have Ashok, I have Nick or Nicholas, depends on, how we're feeling, and Kristin, and we're here to talk about Hear Us. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Yeah.
This is the time you say thank you. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks for being here. We're going to talk about what Hear Us is in a minute. But you, Ashok, you are a senior at an area high school, correct? And Nick, you are a junior.
Right.
Okay. And Kristin, you have worked at Prevent+Ed for like 11 years?
Yeah, just 11 years last week.
Whew.
It's my anniversary, so.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So, Hear Us. What the heck is that? Talk to me. What is it?
Well, I could talk about it. Nicholas can talk about it as well. But basically, it's a program where students are able to talk to state legislators, senators, or representatives and their staff on drug prevention policy and advocacy. And sometimes they can morph into mental health advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my first year or my second year, someone talked to Corey Bush's office as well. So it's definitely growing up there. And we have peer mentors and people, Prevent+Ed staff like Kristin, helping us out on how to build these prevention skills, but not only just learn them, but apply them into these legislative meetings.
Awesome. So you said a lot there. So let me unpack that a little bit. So Hear Us is it's a one-day event. So do you just learn in one day, like how to talk to elected officials, or?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not a one-day process. If it was, we definitely wouldn't have the same amount of success that we had, and we would be nowhere near as prepared. But typically it starts somewhere in January, and we basically meet with other kids who live in the same area as us, and we come together and we learn about advocacy, what advocacy is. We learn about different ways to advocate, and then we kind of dive into more like drug-related issues, and we kind of learn about that. And then we kind of spend a lot of time working together to kind of come up with the conversation that we want to have with our local legislators. So, for example, this year I'm doing Hear Us with two other people. And later tonight, I'm going to meet with them on Zoom, just talk about the kind of direction we want to take, and kind of really start getting into the specifics about what we actually want to address when we do meet with legislators later this March. So it's definitely not a one-day process. It's a big build up to it, but that kind of just ensures that we're well prepared.
You're prepared, yeah. So you learn what advocacy is and what advocacy isn't. You get some training, and then you get some information so that you're prepared to be able to talk about the issue. Yeah. What, if you don't mind my asking, Nick, what is the thing that you and your other two folks are going to talk about with legislators?
So yeah, that's a great question.
Okay, so TBD. All right.
Exactly. So, since we're all so busy, we haven't really found a great chance to meet up yet and really pick the topic that we want to do. And this is later than we would like this year, but
you still have 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
We would like more, but I think we'll be okay. But I can give you an example of the past 2 years.
Please.
We focused on vaping and we looked at different House bills, specifically about specifically tobacco use. And we kind of presented our findings, our research from the Missouri Student Survey, for example, and other credible sources. And we kind of presented the facts and statistics through a presentation about vaping. So that's kind of what we did the past 2 years. And I've been working with the same people more or less because we all go to the same school district. So
okay, so as an example, so last year, just to take that and break it down. So last year, you and two other people sort of decided that you wanted to talk to your legislators about vaping and tobacco use. You put together a presentation. Prevent+Ed then lined up some visits for you. Yeah. And are they your representatives and your senators?
Yeah, so it's all based where we live. It's based on where we live. We look up.
And why does that matter, by the way? Why is it important for you to be talking to somebody where you live?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel we living in our community, we have a really good perspective of what's going on in our specific kind of area, our community. So it's really important that like we talk to the people who are responsible for us and the people that we know. So that's why we kind of like do it that way. And like,
yeah, and when you turn 18, guess what? You
vote.
could or could not vote for them.
Yeah.
Correct. So
Right.
you're a constituent.
Yeah.
That's why they really care.
they represent us, so it's important that like, we
Exactly.
talk to them. Yeah.
Do you know what you're talking about this year, Ashok?
So I don't know what I'm talking about this year as well. But in terms of the past, a lot of the focus was on the prescription drug monitoring program. And that was one of the huge wins that Nicholas and I had. Missouri was the last state to have a prescription drug monitoring program, but now we have one statewide. And that legislative discussion first was about having a prescription drug monitoring program. Then second, it turned into one about expanding the program in the first place, because we had one for more urban communities, but the percentage that didn't have one was more rural communities. So it was most about inequality. And we got it passed, which was really cool.
Yes, and I have to say that we tried, meaning the collective we, the state, tried for years to pass the prescription drug monitoring program because, as you said, we were the last state in the union to have one of these. And it's not the tool that's going to solve the overdose crisis, but it's a tool, right? So we're the last state. We'd been talking. And in my humble opinion, I think that we finally got the damn thing passed because y'all were dogged in your pursuit. And for every point, you had a counterpoint. And for every piece of stigma and misinformation, you all were prepared. I honestly feel like y'all got this damn thing passed.
Definitely. I was actually having a conversation.
I do. I feel that.
Yeah, with a lot of elected officials, and there was one who told me the reason that the bill passed, one of the big reasons why, was because there was one person in Republican leadership in the House that they lost someone to drug addiction. So we basically set the framework with all these representatives when that leadership trickled down, that we need prevention to be not reactive but proactive. And they probably realized that then and there, that this piece of legislation allows for less lives to be lost in the future because we are preventing something from happening.
I have had the privilege of sitting in on visits with you all, with you, Ashok in particular, with Maya when she was talking with Cori Bush, with some other individuals. And Kristin, it's amazing, isn't it? Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. So I've been doing this, like I said before, for 11 years. And we have lots of great programs at Prevent+Ed that empower young people. And if you want to see a transformation happen in real time, it's all about Hear Us. Young people going in to these trainings or these conversations, some of them who are first timers, and you guys can kind of attest to this, it's nerve-wracking the first time you do it. And they come out of the meetings when we were doing them in person in Jefferson City or in the Zoom rooms that we were in the last couple of years, come out of it completely transformed. It's like, oh, and now it's important. You guys know to take it seriously, and it's a lot of work to prepare for it, but it's a different attitude once you've done it. And you can tell that, like, there's a big change that happens in a young person before and after that we do those meetings. So
I think not only is it incredible because you see the transformation in young people, but yesterday we were in Jeff City and we took a group of our peers, and these are adults who had never before sat across the table from a elected official or a legislative assistant. They did not know. They were scared, right? Because they seem like, oh, these scary people who are so important and they're in charge and they're whatever. And at the end of the day, I mean, they are just people. Yep. And so the first meeting, they were so scared and so nervous. And then by the second one, they're like, oh, this isn't that bad. And by the end of the day, I wasn't even going in with them, right? They're doing it. It is amazing the power, in a way, like the like self-efficacy after you have and navigate a conversation with an elected official. Like, it's kind of a high in a way. Like, Definitely. It really is. Like, you get a surge of dopamine.
I love being able to, again, my role is kind of like on this podcast to like kind of sit back and just be there for support or like to step in if needed. And I love watching legislators ask you all questions and and have that conversation. And for you all, which you two know because you've done this before and you are involved in other types of activities like this, but like to see the high schoolers that we work with and that you guys help mentor, things like that, help people realize that I do have a voice in this process, and legislators do care what I think, and we can hold them accountable for what we want them to do. And it's very doable, and hopefully that's again, a wonderful thing, part of this program is it's not just about the advocacy, which is obviously the main part of it. It's not just about that. It's about the growth that our young people that are participating in it can kind of gain, and the knowledge that they gain about how they can participate in the system, so that we don't get to a point where you're 30 or 40, and you're still unsure of how to participate in that process. It's like another way that we're helping, shift that in society, hopefully. So.
Yeah, or like people who just don't vote because they don't think that their vote matters, or that, they would never even know how to have a conversation with a person who's an elected official. I mean, y'all are doing this and have been at like age 15. Like that's pretty gutsy.
Yeah.
So you're laughing, Nick. So like how, I mean, like rewind, would you have ever thought, as like an 8th grader, for example, would you have ever thought that you would want to be doing this? Or have you always been like, interested in this kind of thing?
Yeah, so no, my story of like how I got involved in all this is really kind of, I'll say it's interesting because I am like, I think I consider myself a very introverted person.
Okay.
Especially, around people I don't know. And I think like in 8th grade, like middle of 8th grade, I would have never imagined me like next year, like speaking to like state legislators. So, I'll tell you a story. It's like at the end of 8th grade, this was during COVID, we're all at home, pandemic. And so my school district and like the place I live in has like a kind of like a general local coalition.
Yes.
And they got in touch with a lot of 8th graders because they were starting this youth sector.
Yes.
And they want high schoolers to be a part of it. And somehow I found a link, and I saw a link. I thought, this is kind of interesting. So I eventually spoke to the coordinator there.
You're like, this is going to look good on a resume someday.
Yeah, I mean, look.
And it does, but okay.
It does. Yeah. And then, so yeah, I got involved with that, and then they kind of presented this kind of new exciting opportunity called Hear Us, and I thought it was kind of cool to get involved with that. So I signed up for it, and then I started going to those Zoom meetings in end of December, beginning of January. Worked on it through March, and I did my first conversation with legislators, and I thought it was great. Yeah.
And you've really been on a rocket ship because you got really involved with your area coalition. Mm-hmm. You and some of your peers put on a really powerful mental health training kind of during COVID, right? Where you had a lot of the town hall, where you had a lot of parents and people tuning in, and even some legislators. Mm-hmm. And it was an incredibly powerful conversation.
Yeah, no, it was. So I've done that for the past 2 years, and I think it's just like a great way to have like a lot of people come together and just like learn about substance use, substance prevention, just the information and the facts. And like it's been really great to like collaborate also with other school districts, kind of like representing like, this is the youth of like the St. Louis area. Like this is like what we're concerned about. This is what we want you guys to know. And then just being like there on the panel and like answering all these questions and just talking about our lives, I just think it's really empowering, and it's just a great thing to be involved in. It's
amazing to watch. And, speaking of a rocket ship, my friend, so what I should tell you all about Ashok is that he is our current teen board representative. So since I got into this position, every May we appoint somebody who is a rising senior to sit on our board and provide input and some, we talked a lot about lived experience in the recovery community, but you also are providing lived experience of what it means to be a teenager in 2023, right? And you've been through our programs. And so something tells me that you've always been involved in advocacy, and that you were always that like kid that was like, no, I don't want that for dinner. I want this, and here's why. Is that true or no?
To a certain extent, yes.
Okay.
I do think I'm a very opinionated person, and a well-seasoned perspective is important, right?
Yes.
In terms of like Hear Us and how I got involved, to be honest, the first time I heard about Hear Us, it got canceled. My freshman year.
Yeah.
It was March 11th and 13th, or March 11th and 12th of 2020. So we canceled it.
We had to cancel it because we weren't allowed to go to Jeff City, and it was
they closed the Capitol the day before. The day before Hear Us, and it was devastating.
It was a big Okay, so you hear about it and it was canceled.
Yeah, and the reason why I joined Hear Us in the first place is because I did speech and debate, and Nicholas does speech and debate as well. So obviously there's some correlation there.
Okay,
but
all right.
I think this goes to show, but in speech and debate, we learn a lot about problems, and we debate problems, and we talk about solutions. But after that, it kind of fizzles out, right? We get to the next topic and next solution. But why can't we do something now? Why can't we just talk? Why do we only have to talk about it? Why can't we take action? And Hear Us was really the best way to do so. And that's where it started. I talked to my local coalition leader and talked to the person for Hear Us, and then and there I'm on the Zoom meeting. I'm using my speech and debate skills for advocacy. I'm not just talking about solutions. I want to talk about them with this legislator who can implement those solutions through policy.
I have seen you in action. And Nick, I'm sorry, I have not actually seen you in action. I've heard about you, but I've not seen you. I have seen you in action, Ashok, and you are able to remain very calm, especially when there is misinformation and prejudice being thrown in your face. How do you remain so calm? Because I would like to learn from you, because I struggle with remaining that calm when somebody is telling me things that I know are just straight up BS or wrong.
Yeah, so I think it's important to rationalize and humanize their opinion, right? There's a reason why they're believing in that theory or believing in that statistic. It's not because the statistic is false. They probably know it's false deep down inside, but they want to use it as a mechanism to cope, most likely. Maybe they're just misinformed because they want to. It's for their political power, but realizing and humanizing the other perspective for them. There was a legislative official that told me that drug abuse and drug addiction is a choice. That's not true. That's not political. It's apolitical. We know it's not a choice. It's a disorder. It's a disease. It's cemented in medical knowledge. But there might be some rationale behind them trying to identify drug addiction and drug abuse as a choice. There might be some mental health standpoint that we need to understand from that. And after all, they're a human as well. They're part of this country, and they're a voter as well. They have a voice, and there's a reason why we need to meet in the middle and understand what can we agree on, because we can't just raise words, we have to raise awareness. So,
you want to run for office someday? No, for real. Is that on your...
I don't know. We'll see. I didn't know about Hear Us, to be honest. That wasn't on my radar in 8th grade.
Yeah, right. Nick, you going to run for office someday?
Oh, absolutely not. No.
Why not? Come on, y'all are the people that should be running for office, because you understand nuance and you understand human beings and empathy and all of the things. Please run someday.
No, the only reason I say that is because I'm really passionate about Hear Us and and just general advocacy work and working with my local coalition, also Prevent+Ed. And I just think I have never been a very outspoken or opinionated person, and doing Hear Us and other things like that has really helps me become more comfortable with sharing with the opinions that I do have. But I just think in general, in the future, I think what Hear Us has given me is the opportunity and the comfort to kind of share my ideas more and share my thoughts more. And I don't think running for office or some kind of position like that is really for me. But regardless, having the skill set I've developed because of Hear Us, regardless of what I do in the future, is will definitely help. Yeah.
It will. I know you have probably already seen that, right? And how you speak about issues, how you're doing in school, how you're maybe even presenting. I know you're, actively pursuing college, Ashok. Yeah. I'm sure how you sort of represent yourself. You're a part of CADCA's something...
National Youth Action Council.
Yes, yeah. Right, which CADCA stands for...
It's different now.
I know. What does it stand for? Kristin, what...
It's community and driven. I think so, yeah.
It's CADCA.org. Go to it, and then you can find out what it's called.
It's a conglomerate of coalitions.
Community coalitions that it's all about, empowering community members to make decisions around substances in their own communities. And you're a youth representative.
Yes. So I'm basically a stakeholder in a lot of the issues and a lot of the implementation they have. So we're working on a capstone project right now with mental health equity in the Missouri region. So.
Yeah, right. That. Kristin, this is what you were doing in high school, right?
I was doing some of this, but
I was going to say, I know I was doing it too, but
we were doing some of this, but not at the national level. And I didn't know what CADCA was. I was not involved in drug prevention, but we were talking before this about speech and debate and some of the other programs that I think is a natural. There's a natural launch point for some of these traditional school programs that people are more familiar with, like speech and debate, to something like Hear Us, where there is a connection to where the skills transfer and they can kind of grow and build upon one another. So I was doing some of this in high school, but I was not part of any sort of national anything. So it's really great knowing that Ashok is there to represent our state and our profession pretty much at the national level. So we're lucky that we get young people like Nick and Ashok. So
totally. Now, when we were thinking about this idea to have y'all on for the podcast, we were like, oh, well, if we, put it out a couple of weeks beforehand, we'll hopefully promote it and we'll get some additional people who will come. But we're booked this year, right, Kristin? We are full.
Well, we had to turn in our head count to the hotel in the beginning of March. So we've got our kids. It's set. We're ready to go. So yeah.
And so it'll be at the end of March, and we're going to be, working with you all to make sure that you have the support you need, you have your topics, and then basically, we get on a bus and we go to Jeff City, which is our capital, and you meet with officials, and then is there any sort of, debrief afterwards? What then? What happens when I just said what I was hoping you all would talk about. What happens when Hear Us ends? Is that it, or do you have more opportunities to stay involved with us?
Yeah, no, definitely opportunities to stay involved. There's always opportunities to stay involved. We go to Jeff City, we talk with them. Small little debrief session. While we're still there, of course. Just kind of general thoughts of how it went. Come back to St. Louis, and then after that, a couple weeks later, we have a more formal debrief session.
Sure.
I know past couple of years we've met in person, despite there being COVID restrictions, and we kind of met in an outdoor area, kind of just talked about how it went.
There's food, right? There's always food.
Mm-hmm. We wrote handwritten letters.
Yes,
to legislators,
thank you
which is really
notes.
important.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we kind of just took a moment to reflect what we achieved, and a lot of these achievements are long term, so we're not gonna see it right away. But
totally,
we still you can get a general sense of how you think your conversation went with them, and then then the other thing is Elevated. So Elevated is our PrevenT's youth coalition, and it's obviously focused around drug prevention, but also mental health and other just general life things.
Yeah,
for lack of a better term.
And how do you as a teenager navigate when you maybe don't want to drink, or maybe you're how do you find a positive peer group to be supportive of your decisions? That's a huge part of what Elevated is, right? And just supporting each other's mental health as you're just normal teenagers, just living life, that's a real thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it goes to show, going back to the question about running office, you don't need political power to empower people, right? And Elevated is really that reason, because you can have this positive peer group that you're talking about, but we also do other stuff outside of that and try to implement new strategies. And I know everyone at Elevate goes back to their own communities and does capstone projects, like Nicholas was talking about, that mental health town hall. I know other members who went and did other things like research and prevention. And I know Pooja did so much with lockboxes.
And the locks boxes, yes.
So everyone has their own perspective, and Elevated is really a platform for them to grow on those skills. And seeing those other people empowered me to do other things as well with my community. So
I am just so grateful to you all for being here, of course, to talk about your experience, but also just for the work that you're doing. And I know I say this a lot and it kind of sounds like a broken record, but I'm around a lot of adults who are like, oh, kids these days. And like, they don't know the teens that I know, because if they knew the teens that I knew, like you, they would be incredibly hopeful and inspired, because I do believe, and all of us at PrevenTed believe, that like teenagers are going to change the world, like, and you all are in real time, as we've seen with the prescription drug monitoring program, just to name one example. So thank you, truly, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for doing the work that you do. If you like what you heard today, please consider rating, reviewing, and subscribing to The PrevenTable.
Thanks for joining us at The PrevenTable, brought to you ad-free by Prevent+Ed. Prevent+Ed works to reduce or prevent the harms of alcohol and other drug use through education, intervention, and advocacy. Please visit their website at PreventEd.org. Like what you heard? Rate, review, and subscribe to stay up to date with what we are serving on The PrevenTable.